Welcome to this special program, Portraits of Africa. This is also one of our active aging programs, and we thought this was good to have Bob, who's retired and staying, an example of someone who's staying very active. Bob Wyble is retired from teaching biology in public schools in Lancaster County and serving as an assistant principal at Warwick High School. He is an amateur photographer. I don't think you gave yourself enough credit. You said amateur. Who enjoys shooting pictures of wildlife and landscape. Bob holds a master's degree from Northern Arizona University. He is the author of a book, Life Together, in which he tells his story of being a caregiver for his wife who died from Alzheimer's. And you were actually here and did a book signing for us. Yes. Let's welcome Bob.
Well, thank you, Janice. We're going to have some fun today. It's kind of a wet day out there, and this is about as good as anything else we can do today. I call this program Portraits of South Africa. I could talk forever, but I don't want to put you to sleep, so we'll try to keep it inside of an hour. My goal is to share some images with you, tell some stories, just to give you a feeling of what South Africa is like. And I should say at the beginning, I'm going to be held to task here today because the people that we traveled to South Africa with are here. So if I screw up, you're going to have to tell me. Lamar and Carolyn Weaver and Nelson Hoover, Dale and Jane, or Jane's here. I don't see Dale. He'll be here. Okay, all right. All right, anyway, so let's roll and let's talk about Africa. So we can lower the lights a little bit, please. Now, you were smart when you renovated here to put a screen back there, so I don't have to be jerking my head around all the time. So that's a good idea, really good idea. Okay, Portrait of South Africa. Just to give you an idea of where we're going here, Cape Town is way down in the lower left-hand corner, and then where the pink stars are. And going over to Durban, yeah. And then up to Kruger National Park, which most people know when they hear about South Africa, and Johannesburg and Victoria Falls. So that just gives you a little sense of where we're going to be going and what we're going to be doing. Oops, did I go the wrong way? Here we go. No surprise that there would be a statue of Nelson Mandela at the courthouse in Cape Town. So he's there saluting everybody going by. Oh, I see this is one behind here. All right. Now, there's a sculpture of glasses in a park in Cape Town, which is facing Robben Island, where Mandela was imprisoned. He did wear sunglasses there, so I guess there's something there, reason to do it. Anyway, it's supposed to be a tribute to Nelson Mandela. Down on the waterfront, there's a Ferris wheel. So we went up on the Ferris wheel to give us a little perspective as to what Cape Town looks like. So looking at it from the top of the Ferris wheel, you can see the rugby stadium for South Africa, for Cape Town. This is the waterfront. This is the Atlantic Ocean. This is the east side. The Indian Ocean is on the west side of Africa. Let's move on here. There we go. To the east of Cape Town, there's a tall mountain. It's called Table Mountain. It's about 3,500 feet above the city. So most people that go to South Africa take a cable car and ride up to the top of the mountain. And if you look closely, you can see at the top where our destination is. A little bit about Table Mountain, the history. At one time, it was on the ocean floor, and mud and silt and sand were running in from the streams. Dave Martin here, he's a geologist. He should tell you this. Over time, pressure on the ocean floor turned this mud into rocks. And as you know, the continents on the surface of on this ball we call Earth are floating around on the top. They move, only about an inch a year, but they do move. So at some point in history, there was some tectonic movement, and it lifted Table Mountain up 3,500 feet above the coast on the east side of South Africa. There are some names to some of these peaks up here. The one with a point is called Lion's Head, and the one that's a little flatter is called Signal Hill. And then if you look at the very top, you see kind of a gray shadow. That's Robben Island. That was off the coast. That's where Mandela was in prison for 18 years. Looking down the top of Table Mountain, looking down to Cape Town, and you can see the waterfront, Atlantic Ocean. The top of the mountain is not totally flat, but it's relatively flat. There are rocks there, and there's some low-growing shrubs and things there. Not a lot of wildlife on top, but this little fellow is called a hyrax, a rock hyrax. It lives up there. It kind of looks like it ought to be a rodent, but it's not a rodent. People that study this kind of thing say that it's the closest relative is an elephant, due to the structure of its head, due to the incisors of its teeth pointing out its mouth, and its feet have pads like an elephant. So it's a very tiny relative, but supposedly, for those guys that know what they're doing, they say the closest relative to this little guy is an elephant. I put one shot in here of my wife Ruth Ann and I, just to prove that we in fact were there, and I didn't borrow this off the internet from AI or somewhere. This is the King Protea flower, which is the national flower of South Africa. Big, beautiful bloom. Ruth Ann's showing it off here. It's really neat in its bud stage. Then as it opens up, it's a very pretty flower. That's the national flower for South Africa. Now, I want to tell you a story about South Africa that I'd never heard of. Maybe some of you have, I don't know. I want to tell you the story about District 6. I'm on the Ferris wheel, and you can see Cape Town in the foreground, and in the distance is Table Mountain. Between Cape Town and Table Mountain, there was a community called District 6 that lived there. There were about 60,000 people in this community. In the 1960s, if you were not a white person, if you were a colored person or a black person, you had to carry an ID card called a dumb pass. That was back in the 1960s. Now, apartheid began in South Africa in 1948, and it became illegal for people of color, different races, to live together. That became illegal. So our guide told us a story of his grandfather who went to work in the morning. He owned his own house, bought and paid for, and when he came home, there was a bulldozer tearing down his house. His wife and children were sitting on a truck with some clothing, and everything else was being torn down. Just incredible. Now, there's a museum there. What happened here? There we go. There's a museum called District 6 Museum, and inside that museum, there's a tapestry that goes from floor to ceiling, and people whose homes were there and had been torn down embroidered their names onto this tapestry. So it's really moving to walk around inside there and take a look at what happened. It was just incredible. This is what District 6 looked like before and after. There's a gentleman walking down the street with his son, presumably, and then what it looked like afterwards. And just as keep remembering what happened, I took this photo. These are the foundations of the houses that were actually there and were actually torn down. Now think about that. Not 6,000 people, 60. And I checked it out on the internet, and that's what they say. 60,000 people were moved out of District 6 at the base of Table Mountain down to Cape Flats, which is a poverty area, and some other areas, which was a rather poor area. Now, I don't know, I can't vouch for this, but our guide told us this, and I guess he knows what he's talking about. In his opinion, and to some others like him, he says that another reason that it was torn down, the buildings were torn down, is because the white people that had the money and had the power didn't like the fact that this community blocked their view of Table Mountain. So tear down the houses and get rid of them, and then you're good to go. Well, that's the story of District 6. South of Cape Town, there's a colony of penguins. It's worth a trip to look at them. They're called African penguins. They're about 12, 14 inches high. Really cute little guys, right on the beach. So just a couple shots here of the penguins. Now, I don't know why we go blank there. There we go. I went too fast. Just a few shots of the African penguins. It was fun just playing around looking at them. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you see a little fuzzball. That was a young one. So if you go to South Africa, check out the penguins. All right. Next, we're going to Durban. So we flew to Durban, and the first thing we did was to take a boat ride to look for hippos on the St. Lucia River. This is the flight, the pink arrow, going from Cape Town to the east coast of South Africa, which is Durban. We went on a boat something like this, and in a bit, we did see some hippos. We were told that hippos can hold their breath about 5 minutes underwater. And then when they surface, kind of like the whale, they blow a spout. So we saw some hippos. We didn't see any out of the water here. These were all underwater. And this fellow was just looking straight at us. I thought it would be interesting just to compare the difference between Serengeti Plains in Tanzania and Kruger National Park in South Africa, and all the parks in South Africa, really. Serengeti, they're wide open plains. There's occasional acacia tree here and there dotting the landscape. Wide open, thousands of wildebeest, lots of variety of animals, gazelles, cheetah, lions, whatever. In South Africa, you don't have that wide open plain like you do in Tanzania. In South Africa, as you can see, it's just a dirt road, and then there's shrubs and short, small trees on either side. So the difference is you have to be looking a little more carefully for animals in South Africa. They're not just out there in the plain. So sometimes they were hidden behind the brush, and we had to wait a little bit till they come out so we could actually see them. Okay, what's next here? All right, that's not pronounced like it's spelled. It's pronounced Shoshloe, and that's the English version of the pronunciation. That's the first, this is the first national game park that we went to. This fellow is probably not going to win a beauty contest. This is a warthog. They got big tusks that come out the side of their mouth. This is the male. They can use them for digging out roots and various things, and also in fighting off other males in competition. Another view of two warthogs. And you know about pigs in the mud. Well, warthogs like mud. And we'll talk more about mud later. There is actually a reason why they do this. So we'll talk about animals bathing in the mud in a little bit later. White rhino. What's interesting is you look at the horns, or where the horns were on this rhino. They're kind of short and stubby. That's because they were cut off with a chainsaw. Poachers like to shoot these rhinos, cut off the horns, grind them up into powder, and then they sell them to various markets, other places in the world that think that it's going to do something special for the men. So this is a white rhino. A little bit about rhinos. The word for white, it's not white in color, so why is it called a white rhino? Well, it's called a white rhino because of the Afrikaans word, W-E-I-T, which is a description of the rhino's mouth. The white rhino has a broad mouth and grazes like a cow would, whereas the black rhino has a mouth that's more pointed and it picks leaves and things off of trees. So black is the opposite of white, so maybe that's the reason why black rhinos are called black, because of the opposite of white, even though they don't look like that in color. We saw a couple of them just laying along the road we were driving on, taking a snooze. Well, I got a hiccup. There we go. Another view. Big boy or girl, don't know which. This one was lying on its side, and you can see a little bird up on its side. That's an oxpecker. It was picking parasites and whatever it could find, giving the rhino a little bit of help. All right, moving on to monkeys. We saw two kinds. We saw vervet monkeys and baboons. This particular monkey is sitting on a picnic table, and I should let Lamar tell this story. Lamar was, were you eating a sandwich or something? Whatever. He was eating something, and this monkey wanted it. He was very aggressive. He was coming at Lamar, and our guide said, well, take your fork and just jab at him and run at him, and maybe you can scare him off. Well, eventually, Lamar won, and the vervet monkey decided, okay, enough of this. I'm out of here. An antelope in South Africa. Next. Sometimes I'm not pointing this the right way. Oh, there we go. Nyala. It's the color of our white-tailed deer, the brown color, but it's got white stripes going up and down its body. It's called a Nyala. This is another one. This is a younger one. And those are females. This is a male. The male is darker in color, and it has horns, as opposed to the female that doesn't have horns. Okay, as you would expect, there are some Cape buffalo in South Africa. They're different from the Asian buffalo. These buffalo can't be trained. They're pretty mean guys. So we saw a herd of these, and they were moving down towards a water hole. When they get down to the water hole, we heard a splash. Allegedly, they were probably all going to go into the water, but they didn't because there's probably a crocodile there that we couldn't see, so none of them, they didn't go in. Driving along, we saw various things. These are some students coming home from school, dressed very nicely, probably high school students. Another group of students holding umbrellas, probably for the sun rather than rain, because it wasn't raining that day. And then our guide decided to stop and show us an elementary school. Now, this is a Zulu word I'm not going to try to pronounce. Anybody know the language, want to pronounce it for us? I'm not going to try it. It's an elementary school. Okay. So why did we stop there? Well, there are 3 modular buildings, or 4 white ones. Those were classrooms that the government set up. And then to the left, there is a brick building. There's another picture of it. And the reason I brought this up is I was impressed. This trip was organized by Gate 1 out of Philadelphia. And one of the things Gate 1 does, with some of the proceeds that they get from people taking tours, they use some of the money to do something good someplace. So they decided to build a classroom for this particular school. So I took a picture inside. It was really pretty crowded. There you go. They said up to 70 students might have been in one room. And you can see the little boy's got a tie. Can you imagine a first grader here wearing a tie to school? I don't think so. These 2 little guys were having fun. They were giving me the 2-finger salute. The accommodations in the school, very sparse, not much room. This was the kitchen, a couple of pots sitting on a gas burner. That was it. That was the school. So I'm glad we did stop by there. It kind of makes you think a little bit. Okay, next is Kruger National Park. This is probably the one that most people have heard of or know about, Kruger National Park. This is in South Africa. We went north from Durban. This is a pretty long bus ride till we got up to the park. Now, our guide was an interesting guy. He knew about animals. He knew that if you want to see animals, you should be there early in the morning because that's when they're more active. So at least one of the mornings I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, he said, well, your alarm clock is set for 4:30 tomorrow morning. No breakfast at the lodge. We'll have breakfast packed for you because we want to be at the gate of the park at daybreak and be some of the first ones in. Well, that's a photo I showed you before. This is in Kruger National Park. One of the animals we saw was Mr. Lion, big male. He just casually walking down the road, not paying much attention to us. In fact, he even laid down. Gave us a nice portrait pose. Thank you, buddy. Very kind of you. Little bit, these are, this is a fast food for wildlife. These are impala. They said the one thing we're guaranteed to see is impala. They're just all over the place. Now, if you look at the back end of an impala, doesn't it look a little bit like McDonald's, but black instead of yellow? Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry. A little bit more about lions before we go to the impala. They sleep a lot, up to 20 hours a day. They only hunt every 3 days or so. They can eat up to 10, 15, sometimes even 20 pounds of food, and then they just lay around and sleep. The females do the work. They kill the prey because they're a little more agile than the males are. The males eat first, generally, then the females, and then if there's any left, the cubs get some to eat as well. Males eat a little bit more than females, so they just pack it in, and then 3 days later, they see if they can get lucky again. Now, the impala, here we go. If you look at their backside, it kind of looks like McDonald's with black instead of yellow arches. Isn't that McDonald's arches? McDonald's is fast food for the national park, huh? Makes sense. A lot of things do eat impalas. Lions, cheetah, all kinds of things eat impalas. This is a male. They have horns, the males do. The females don't have horns, but the males do. This baboon was doing a little maintenance for a young one, looking for parasites and picking them off. This fellow was having lunch, eating a piece of fruit that fell off of a tree. And then we saw a baboon health spa. This fellow was just completely laid out, totally relaxed, and somebody was there checking him over for parasites or whatever they could find. So we had a health spa, and we also had Uber service. This little guy got himself a ride. All right, baboon Uber service. I was ahead of you, wasn't I? There you can see it. Okay, this is what I want to talk about. Giraffes. Moving on to giraffes, they are really tall, obviously, up to 18 feet tall. They don't have horns. They have some cartilage, ossicles they're called, sticking out of the top of their head. And the giraffes have a problem. Their head is 6.5 feet above their heart. So how does blood from the heart get pumped up to the brain of a giraffe? Well, from what I learned is the heart of a giraffe can weigh 25 pounds. Now imagine that compared to what ours is. 25 pounds, that's a big heart. And then when the giraffe wants to get a drink of water, it's got the opposite problem. When its head's down below its heart, have to prevent too much blood from rushing to the brain. So when its head's down, then there are special valves in the arteries to prevent blood from rushing to its head. Giraffes have an interesting tongue. It's about 10 to 20 inches long, and it can take pretty much stuff. This giraffe is licking some leaves off of an acacia tree, and you can see there's some spines on there that would be pretty sharp and pretty pointed. But the giraffe's tongue allows him to lick the leaves off without injuring itself. So we have a herd of buffalo. We have a pride of lions. This is a tower of giraffes. A group of giraffes together is called a tower of giraffes. And this is a giraffe drinking, legs spread, head down, drinking some water. This is one mean-looking dude. This is the Cape buffalo. You don't mess with buffalo. We were told this is the only animal that you'll never find in a zoo. They're just too wild, too cranky. You just can't control them. So you won't find any of these in the zoo. And I've occasionally heard people that have actually been killed because they get too close to them. Now back to the mud bath. This young Cape buffalo was rolling in the mud, coating itself, basically putting on sunscreen and insect repellent. That's what it was doing. We finally did see a hippo that was not underwater. Hippo was lying on the land along the edge of a little pond. This hippo, it looks like it's yawning. That's what we do when we get tired. Well, it's not yawning. It's opening its mouth. This is a show of dominance to let any other hippos in the area know, this is my house. Stay out of here. We did see some hippos up on a little island. Some crocodiles. Crocodiles have a pointed nose as opposed to alligators that have a square nose, more flat. There aren't alligators in Africa, at least not to my knowledge, but we did see numbers of crocodiles. Okay, moving on from Durban to Johannesburg. Johannesburg, we came to what is known as Soweto Township. This is where Nelson Mandela lived, and along the way, we saw this rather simple housing, which is very similar to what you would see on the flats in Cape Town. Some very poverty-stricken area with very poor housing. This is Nelson Mandela's house. This is the front door of the house. A couple of views. You can see a picnic or a table on the slide on the left, and then on the right-hand side, and then a picture of Mandela with his dog. A little bit about Mandela. He was arrested in 1962 for opposing the apartheid system, and he went to prison on Robben Island, which is off the east coast of Cape Town. He was 44 years old at that time. That was in 1964. His prison cell was 9 feet by 7 feet. It was said that he could take 3 paces, and it was across 3 paces. So the very small prison cell. He worked in a limestone quarry 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, breaking rocks. He was there for 18 years, and he was a tall man. He was 6 feet tall, and the prison ceiling wasn't quite high enough for him to stand up the whole way. I'd have been all right, but Mandela was too tall, so he couldn't stand up straight in his prison cell. And that was for 18 years. Then he was transferred to a prison in Cape Town, Poolsmoor Prison, in 1982, and he developed tuberculosis while there, and then was transferred to another prison called Victor Vester Prison, and he got a little better treatment there, a little more room. It was a little better than the one he had in Robben Island. And then after being in prison for 27 years, he was released in 1990, and 4 years later, he was elected president of South Africa. Now, that's just an incredible story. So there's a whole lot more. If you go to South Africa, there is an apartheid museum with just a really lot of interesting stuff that's worth taking a look at. This is an interesting story. In 1976, there was a student uprising. The government was wanting the teachers to teach in a Dutch vernacular language, and the locals didn't want that. They wanted to use their own language, so the students were opposed to that. So there's a photo there, a picture at this memorial of a man carrying a boy that's dead, and there's a girl standing beside him. That girl is Antoinette. Our guide arranged for Antoinette to come and talk to us live in person and tell us the story of the student uprising. That was just so gripping. That was just so powerful. She said, The morning of the student uprising, her parents told her, don't you go down to where the students are. You don't know what's going to happen. Well, being kids, they did. And her 12-year-old boy, she was 17, her brother was 12, he got hit by a bullet in crossfire and was killed. So that was just a really gripping, sad story. And to hear it live from this woman that actually experienced it, that was just powerful. Okay, moving on from Johannesburg up to Zimbabwe, to Victoria Falls. There's a statue, here we go. There's a statue of David Livingstone there. He was the first European in 1855 to see Victoria Falls. Some of the people in Zimbabwe would be just as happy if that was torn down, because to them, it's a reminder of the colonization of British over the people of South Africa. But the statue is still there to this day. This is Victoria Falls. It was a bright, sunshiny day, but the mist from the falls would come up and kind of block the falls so you couldn't see it sometimes, and we all wore raincoats. We'd have got really soaking wet if we hadn't. So this is Victoria Falls. Depending on when you go there, there may not be as much water there. We were there in May, so there was plenty of water. So the whole falls, there was water flowing over various places. Sometimes that may not be the case. So we decided to take a helicopter ride to go up and see the falls from the top, get a whole different view. You walk along a path about a mile long, and there's various spots, vistas that you can walk out to see the falls. But if you take a helicopter ride, you get a very different view of the falls. This is the falls from the air. This is the Zambezi River, and it's falling over this falls. It's a mile wide. That's the width of the Susquehanna River. That's the falls. Another view of the falls. Another view. No wonder it's one of the 7 wonders of the world. It's just a beautiful thing to see. A bridge was built, I think it was in 1905. This connects Zimbabwe with Zambia, this bridge. As the water rushes down through, it cuts a gorge. There's a basalt plateau there, and it cuts like a canyon. Well, it really is a canyon. That's what it does. The water is very powerful over millions of years. It cut this big gouge into the landscape. So this is the base of the Victoria Falls. This is a lodge that we stayed at, Victoria Falls Lodge. That's what it looked like. This was the room that Ruth Ann and I stayed in, the one in the middle there. Some of these falls, or these lodges, have a lake or a pond or something that when you're sitting on the deck having coffee and something to eat, you can look out and see wild animals. These were some impala that were up at the lake. And then we heard that they were going to feed the vultures at 12 o'clock noon. So sure enough, about 10 o'clock, these birds knew what was happening. They started circling overhead. And then they started flying in. And they roosted on a tree. And at 12 o'clock noon, a man came out with a cooler full of animal parts and just spread them around in the ground, and the vultures had a feast. There are a lot of birds in South Africa. I didn't get a lot of photos of birds. Nelson, you might have got more than I did. But there are some really neat birds in South Africa. This is a lilac-breasted roller. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at the color on that bird. Its name, roller, comes from the fact that it has a very acrobatic flight during courtship. Kind of rocks back and forth. They call it a roller. So this is a lilac-breasted roller. This is a ground hornbill. This is a open-beaked stork. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little gap. When it closes its mouth, there's a little gap in between there, so it's called an open-beaked stork. This is a fish eagle. Our bald eagle has a white head. This eagle is white the whole way down its front. This is called a hammerkop. Its head kind of looks like a hammer, doesn't it? Hammerkop. And of course, ostriches. Okay, Victoria Falls Private Game Reserve. The reason we went to this reserve was to see if we could see a black rhino. And sure enough, we did see one. It was walking through some brush. We could just see its legs. And then our guide said, I think I know where it's going to come out. So we moved forward a little bit. And after a bit, it came into view. And this was it. This was a black rhino. Age was estimated to be 38 years old. You can see its ribs. It's an old girl. Her horn on the front is normal, the way it's supposed to be. The one in the back was cut off at some point. But look at the mouth. Can you see its mouth? Its mouth is kind of pointed, so it can pick off leaves off of trees and twigs, as opposed to the white rhino. So this is another view. You can see the white rhino with a broad mouth for grazing, eating grass, and a black rhino with a mouth that it can use to pick off leaves and trees. This is the older one, and then there was younger one following behind her. And then this one, she came so close to the car that we could almost touch her. We were in a Jeep, I shouldn't say car. So I got a really nice shot of her coming right up to us. And this was the young one behind her. So these are black rhino. Both of its horns have been cut off. The horn, it's kind of like your fingernail. They can just cut it off. It doesn't hurt the rhino. Chobe River in Botswana, elephant country. This was fun. Along on this river, there were elephants here, and there were islands here and there were elephants walking around, wading around. We were in a boat, something like the one you see there on the photo, and these elephants were getting a drink of water. Elephants can't bend down far enough to drink with their mouth, so they use their trunk to draw up water. An adult elephant could hold about 2.5 gallons of water in its trunk, and it puts it in its mouth, and then it can swallow. A big human baby is what? 10 pounds? 8 pounds? 10 pounds? That'd be a big human baby? Guess what an elephant is? 200 pounds. Can you imagine a 200-pound baby? And the gestation period is 22 months, not 9, 22 months. So that's a long time being pregnant for a big, big baby. Elephants also like to put on sunscreen and insect repellent. This female was playing around, digging up mud. This guy had mud up at least halfway up his side. So they do this on purpose. An elephant drinking water here. There he goes. Okay, so that one got a drink. We saw something long and black, and it was moving. It was an elephant walking on the floor of the Chobe River, and watch what happened. Did I go too quick? Here, let me try this again. Well, it was walking along, it lifted its head, and it was eating grass out of the river. There we go. See it moving? And all of a sudden, its head comes up, and it's dining. There's another one. They were literally walking on the bottom of the river. Okay, there was a crocodile laying alongside of one of these little islands. They're cold-blooded, so when the water is warmer than the air, they stay in the water, and then when the air is warmer than the water, they come out and lay on the bank, sunning themselves to warm up. The bird sitting in front of it was a little further away than it looks on the photo, but the crocodile didn't seem interested in trying to catch the bird. We did see a hippo. It was chowing down some grass also. Now, Chobe National Park, elephants galore. This is right beside where the river was. It's just so amazing to see these things, creatures in their natural environment. A little bit about the ear of an elephant. The ear is a little hole right in the side of its head, but this big flap like our earlobe is very useful for the elephant to regulate its body temperature. It can fan itself. There are blood vessels in the ear that can, so heat can escape from the body of the elephant. So these big ears have a function. Also, when the elephant eats, we use our front leg with our thumb and finger to pick things up. Well, the elephant can't do that with his front leg. So it's got a trunk that it can pinch together, so it can pull twigs and branches off of trees that it can eat. The adaptation of animals to do things, everyone got its own thing. It's really incredible. All right, moving on here. This is the kudu. This is also an antelope in South Africa. It has spiral horns. Really beautiful animal. This was a male kudu hoping to find a girlfriend to mate with, but it didn't work so good that day. She was not interested. Elephants in the water, their own private swimming pool, Chobe River. They were just having a blast. Their trunk becomes a snorkel. After they played around the water for a while, then they decided, okay, time to go back up into the forest. Just amazing to watch these creatures. Late in the afternoon, when that sun was down close to the horizon, you get that nice warm light. We saw some zebra. Zebra stripes are interesting. They're kind of like our thumbprint. Each zebra has its own pattern of stripes. I shouldn't do this, but I will. You know how to tell a male zebra from a female zebra? Black stripes on white, or white with black straps? Nah, not true. And then we had some drama. Our guide wasn't happy that we hadn't seen many lions. So we were working really hard this last day to get us some lions to see. So we were driving along this area, and he thought he saw some movement in grass. It was pretty tall. It was pretty far away. We didn't see anything. And this matriarch elephant and 2 young ones was off to the left, moving towards this spot where the lions are. And watch what happened. I didn't have the sound on here, but she actually shrilled at it, trumpeted at it, and she actually moved towards the lions. And the lions, 9 lions, just stood up. We're out of here. We're not going to contest an elephant. That was pretty cool. That was really a treat. If you see 15 or 20 Jeeps parked along the side someplace, you can almost bet there's a lion sighting, because that's what everybody wants to see. And you can see that lion on the right-hand side. He went right between those Jeeps. Were we concerned? Well, our guide told us, don't stick your hands outside the vehicle. And the Jeep doesn't look like food, so the lions didn't bother us. This was a young male. His mane is just beginning. So the lions walk off into the bush. So that is what I have to share with you. And I want to close with a quote, 2 quotes actually, from David Attenborough. David Attenborough is a British naturalist, started photographing when he was a teenager, and has been photographing all of his life. I like these 2 quotes. It seems to me that the natural world is the greatest source of excitement, the greatest source of visual beauty, the greatest source of intellectual interest. It is the greatest source of so much in life that makes life worth living. And he is now Sir David Attenborough. And a second quote, the fact is, no species has ever had such wholesale control over everything on earth, living or dead, as we have now. That lays upon us, whether we like it or not, an awesome responsibility. In our hands now lies not only our own future, but that of all other living creatures with whom we share the earth. David Attenborough. Now, just a final comment. It's interesting to me that there's constantly pressure for land to be taken out of its natural habitat and turned into condos, apartments, and yes, we need them, and yes, there are more people, and yes, we need more building, but if we don't leave some space for our wild friends to live, there ain't going to be any wild friends for our grandchildren to see. So even the small thing that Akron Church is doing with putting a little nature area in 4 acres out back of the church, even such a small thing is a good thing. So thank you.
Do you mind answering some questions?
Sure, if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great images and very educational. Had a history lesson and learned a lot today. Any questions or comments? Yes, Mary, I'll be right back.
On the picture, one of the pictures you showed for District 6,
Yeah.
it said the miners and black workers. Now, would the miners have been black also?
Some of them probably.
But it would have been a mixture?
I think so.
Uh-huh. So they wouldn't have, they didn't, when they flattened that, it wasn't all black people that lost their homes.
No. It was black people, white people, colored people, Asians, Jews, Indians, all mixed races. Not just black people, no.
Okay.
But they were not allowed to live together because that was verboten in apartheid.
Well, do you mean in the same house or in the same community?
Same community. Well, obviously not in the same house, but not in the same community, no.
So that was why they got rid of it.
Yeah.
because all those people were living in the same community.
Yep, they tore it down.
Or maybe because the rich people didn't have a good view.
Maybe. Any other questions? There's the what? Yes. Animals aggressive to the people? No. They didn't. We weren't threatened at all by any of the animals. But while we were there, we were told that a tourist got into an area he wasn't supposed to, and a woman was trampled to death by an elephant. So it can happen. But you got to use a little common sense, listen to your guide, keep your hands in the Jeep. Other questions? My shirt? Oh, our flight from Washington to Cape Town, South Africa was 13 hours. And I saw there was about 20 guys with green shirts on. And I said, you guys a soccer team or something? He said, yeah, we're the rugby team from South Africa. They were on the same flight we were going to Cape Town, and they had just been out in Los Angeles, and they won a rugby tournament out there. So when I got to South Africa, I told our guide, I said, I got to have a rugby shirt. I don't play rugby, but I got to have a shirt. So he said, okay. So he told me where to get one, so I got a shirt. Nelson. Yeah. Anybody else that was there, something you want to add, please?
A story to tie into that. Nelson Mandela he's just a great thinker and politician, and he used the rugby sport as a way to bring blacks and whites together, where it was a white man's sport. The whole team was white, but he brought in some black folks, and actually they didn't join the team, but he rallied behind this team. And if you want to see the story, there's a movie called Invictus, which is very good, very good.
Another question back here.
Where?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we had a question back here.
Okay. Lamar, Dale, Carolyn, anything else you think of?
There was 4 of us left the tour up in Francistown, because Dale and I both lived in Botswana, I for 4 years, Dale for 3 years. And we would tell stories when we were together, and our wives would roll their eyes and say, sure, sure. And so, but we spent 9 days going around showing where I lived and where Dale lived. And so we had a great time.
And did you actually see somebody that knew you?
Dale did.
Dale did.
Yes.
Anything else? Yes, Dan.
Just a comment that the height of Victoria Falls double the height of Niagara.
I think that's right, yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, it's just incredible. I'm glad we got there when there was water, so we could see a lot of water rushing. And you literally, I mean, the sun is shining, and you literally think it's raining. There's so much mist comes up and comes, I mean, we were drenched with our jackets.
Did you see a circle rainbow while you were walking?
No, didn't see a circle rainbow. I'm sure it could happen. No. I was disappointed. If you could have told the captain, this was interesting with the helicopter. If you ever take a helicopter ride, when they're figuring out where to put you, they weigh you. So the weight's balanced in the helicopter. And if you want to sit up front to take pictures, hang 2 cameras around your neck and you'll automatically go to the front. But it would have been nice if we could have circled around and got a little lower to get another shot, and even get a shot of a rainbow in the falls. That would have, I've seen that, but I haven't seen that. That would have been incredible. Yeah. Leon.
One of the interesting things about that falls is, unlike Niagara, where the river goes straight ahead, at Victoria, it turns right. Right? Isn't that correct? Yeah.
That's the way it cut the gorge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it cuts the gorge. That's right. Yes.
How close were you to those lions when the elephants were coming after the lions? How close were you taking that picture?
Well, I had a long lens and I was pulling in pretty close. We were pretty far away. Once they got down to the road where our Jeep was parked, then they were pretty close, maybe from here to the back of the auditorium. But most of the time they were pretty far away. But what's interesting to me is they didn't even think about challenging the mom elephant. They didn't want any parts of that. They got up, yawned, and said, "We're out of here." I'm sorry? How long was the trip? What were we, 2 weeks? About 16 days. Yeah, it's a long way to get there, but boy, it's worth it. If you got a chance to go, put it on your bucket list. One of the better trips I've ever been on. Anybody else? Well, it's been fun. Thanks for coming and listening to him.
Yes, let's give Bob another hand. Thank you. And he's heading to New Zealand November 1, so then you'll come back and tell us all about that.
Yeah, Dale and Jane are going. Well, they got us to go.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll have more stories.
All right. Thank you again.